Day 1. You are about to witness information. Are you ready for it? Walt Whitman Rostow was an American economist who in the 1950s proposed his 5 stages of development. Rostow's model showed economic growth that each country has to go through. Every country in the world is in one of these 5 stages. The model starts at stage 1 and transitions all the way to stage 5. The first stage of the Rostow model is a traditional society. These countries are more focused on agriculture than economic gain. An example would be Afghanistan, since they lack technology and economic value. The second stage of the Rostow model is preconditions to takeoff. These countries contain an elite group that initiate innovative economic activities. They are beginning to develop, and many sub-Saharan countries are part of stage 2. One country in stage 2 would be Mozambique. In 2006, the government formulated the Poverty Reduction Strategy Paper, or PARPO 2. What they are trying to do is get more resources, health, education, and financial aid to their citizens. The third stage is takeoff itself. Countries in the takeoff stage have rapid growth in the textile or food industries. However, they do continue to keep to traditional practices. 30 years ago, Vietnam was one of the poorest countries in the world. But since then, they have instituted a policy named Doi Moi to turn them into a market-oriented country. The fourth stage is drive to maturity. This is where China lays. They have modern technology which is diffused to a wide variety of industries. Their workers are becoming more skilled and more specialized. The fifth and final stage is the age of mass consumption. This is when steel and energy-based industries lose their top spot in the economy as it shifts over to more consumer goods. In the United States, for example, Toyota sells 61.66% of all their cars manufactured in the US. There are positives and negatives of Rostow's economic theory of development. For example, the model shows key points that each country will hit. However, the model shows the gist of the countries, but it does not show every piece of information. Manuel Wallerstein, an American social scientist, proposed the world systems theory. He believed that the relationship between developed countries and undeveloped nations should be thought as a core and a periphery, and a semi-periphery in between. Developed countries, of course, occupied the core areas, while undeveloped nations occupied the periphery. Countries laying in between the middle ground of the core and the periphery are thought as to be semi-periphery. Particular core and periphery regions have a special connection. In Chapter 10, Key Issue 2, it states, particular core and periphery regions have special connections. The development prospects of Latin America are tied to governments and businesses primarily in North America. Those of Africa and Eastern Europe to Western Europe, and those of Asia to Japan, and to a lesser extent Europe and North America. An example of a core region would be Western Europe, as shown on screen. Countries in Western Europe have more technology, more medicine, and more things that are needed for survival, and not just survival, but to thrive. Semi-periphery countries, like Mexico, are on the verge of becoming a core country. Most developing countries are classified as periphery, but a handful of developing countries are now classified as semi-periphery. These countries have more access to technology, medicine, and jobs that are not available in other periphery countries. As stated before, most developing countries are classified as periphery nations. One example of a periphery nation would be Ethiopia. They have low amounts of medicine, low amounts of food, low amounts of technology. The average citizen in Ethiopia would rather survive and drink some water than get a new iPhone. Once again, like Rostow's theory of development, the world systems theory is not perfect. Labeling other countries in the world into only 3 categories helps you out to distinguish developing nations and developed nations. However, even after including the semi-periphery category, you still don't get all the information needed to know what a country is like. Some countries in the periphery category will be more developed than other countries in the periphery category. Transporting goods from one place to another costs money. obviously. So why would a company want to spend more money than it should? Alfred Weber, a German economist, thought of just that. He formulated a theory that an industry should be strategically placed where transportation costs, raw materials, and the final product are at a minimum. There are two types of industries, one bulk gaining and one bulk reducing. In bulk reducing, the raw materials weigh more than the final product. Therefore, it costs more money to transport raw materials. So an industry thinking smart would place their factory near where the raw materials are harvested. In bulk gaining industries, the final product weighs more than the raw materials that it is made of. So it would cost more money to transport the final product than the raw materials themselves. An industry would want to place their factories where the product is sold rather than where the raw materials are extracted from. An example of a bulk reducing industry would be gold mining. Since when gold is extracted, the majority of the ore is waste. You want to reduce it more to a finer, pure gold that have to go through the mining process, the concentration process, smelting, refining, and manufacturing all near the mines. Once gold is in its purest state, it is then transported everywhere else where it is needed. An example of a bulk gaining industry would be cars. Since importing the steel, the leather, the rubber, everything that is made to make a car weighs less than the individual car itself, it would be smarter to place the companies near where the product is sold. This would make it cheaper to distribute the cars themselves than the steel and everything else that is made a part of it. A strength of this model is that it simplifies a complex reality. One does not need to know much about industries, but with this model, they can know where industries are usually placed based on what they sell. However, you can get caught up and believe that this is all there is to it, but no, you need to know about the Earth situation. The final model we will be discussing is changes in transportation systems. An industry will always want to save their money, so choosing the best mode of transportation is vital. Trucks, for example, are used for short-term deliveries. This is due to the fact that they can be unloaded and loaded easily and are cheap if the driver does not have to stop for an extended period of time. If an industry wants to deliver a package from the east coast of the United States to the west coast, they can use a train. Trains cost more than trucks, but they go for longer distances without daily stops. It takes more time to load and unload, but it will take much less time to actually deliver than a truck. The next form of transportation are ships. Ships are even more expensive, but can be used for even longer distances. Another advantage would be that they can cross oceans, unlike the previously mentioned transportation methods. The last form of transportation are airplanes. Airplanes are the costliest of the bunch, so they are only used for small bulk, high-value packages for speedy deliveries. For an industry to maximize savings, they can use break of bulk. This is when packages will be delivered using one form of transportation, then unloaded and loaded into another form of transportation. Common types of break of bulk would be ships unloading at a dock and loading them back into trucks. Another example of break of bulk would be unloading at airports and then loading them into trucks. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was really fun to make. And here are some bloopers. Alfred Weber. Alfred Weber. Alfred Weber. Alfred Weber. Then industry should be strategically. Then industry should be crisscross applesauce, hands in your lap. Topeka, Kansas. Topeka, Kansas. Topeka, Kansas. Topeka, Kansas. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah. While undeveloped nations occupied Why is this so hard? Okay. Alfred. You'd think that planes give birth to smaller planes, but no, they don't.